everybody, Steve Elkin here. Today we're going to continue our discussion about the collusion spectrum and how it overlays on the change grid and what difference that might make to anybody's existence. So what I just did a couple moments ago was I chatted over everyone this diagram that Stephen and I created. It's, by the way, 10 years ago, 11 years ago. It was dated 2011 when we did this. Oh, and our finished document is 30 inches by 33 inches. So there you go, 2.5 feet by just shy of 3 feet if you wanted to try to print the thing out. So I'm going to chat it over to everybody one more time. Those that are listening to the recording, I'll see if I can put this up with the YouTube video. If not, I'll provide a link so you can get to it. But there's this actual diagram if you wanted to be able to kind of like scoot around on your own and see what there is to see. We will end up with this, but I also pulled down the book and just wanted to see how did Thomas Oden go about laying out the concept. And so that's where I would like to begin. So now a question came up about transactional analysis. And so I started doing a little bit of research to see what was the relationship between transactional awareness and transactional analysis. And lo and behold, in the book, Thomas Oden has chosen to write about that. I'm going to read what he has written, and then I just want you guys to tell me if I'm imagining a tone that really isn't there. So here goes. Okay, the widespread popularity of transactional analysis may lead the innocent to assume that Eric Berne is the sole founder of the field concerned to analyze interpersonal transactions. That, of course, is a popular misconception. This study introduces readers to a rich tradition of behaviorist literature predating transactional analysis and having a more empirically controlled research base than transactional analysis, but which, unlike transactional analysis, was so soberly reported with in-group jargon that it has succeeded in being ignored even by the behaviorist tradition which so imaginatively spawned it.
Wow.
Anyone feel any energy in that paragraph?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So, but it does speak very much to the power of marketing. There's good ideas and there's bad ideas, and there's good marketing and there's bad marketing. Well, a bad idea, well marketed, is going to do a lot better than a great idea, poorly marketed.
yeah,
So that's the thing. And so a lot of stuff is that. And, I kind of put the change grade into the same category without being too bold about the whole thing. I've not done a particularly good job of marketing it. I mean, I'm, 65 years old. If I had decided to take a different path, why couldn't the change grade have become something that was common knowledge, a household sort of a thing, I could have done that. That never interested me. So I never went that far. And so I've always felt that if I don't do something to lock it into place, the change grid could also very easily just disappear. And it's all because, I mean, as fascinated I am by the subject matter, I'm a 5, not an 8. So I'm not
mhm,
out there trying to conquer the world. I just found something fascinating and decided to do, a deep dive into it and needed to make a living. So I decided sharing bits and pieces of it was a pretty fun way to do that. So that's
right.
what I did. Now,
This is interesting what he says about this transactional analysis because I felt that when I was going through I was introduced to that in medical school, and the way that I think it was a clinical psychologist was using it was based on some of the conversations we were having. He was saying that I had like I think one of the analysis dimensions is child ego
yeah,
about my way of looking at some of the things that I didn't understand what the hell he was talking about. I
yeah,
really didn't. I was trying to grasp like how am I a child? So I'm approaching it like a child or some
yeah.
nonsense he was saying. I just didn't get it.
Well, it's about positional power. It's that the child is not so much in any way immature in their thinking or unevolved or anything like that. It's that in that particular transaction, remember, it's transactional analysis. In that particular transaction, that child is someone who has either willingly subordinated themselves or is responding to the attempt to control them by probably the person who's in the parent kind of role. I'm not fluent in all things transactional analysis, but I think that's probably the basic gist of it. Any of you on the call, open up experts who's got some.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, I'm not an expert in it, but I've used it and I've studied it, and I actually had someone, uh, present to me on that topic. I find it useful. I think it is. I mean, it's not the deepest thing in the
no,
world, but it is an absolutely useful way of helping people understand, as you were saying, T, where they are, what kind of relationship they are having with others from the standpoint of position power.
that's right.
And by using the framework of the family, which most people can relate to, whether that's in, so people use it in counseling a lot because it's
Mhm.
it uses a family framework rather than, another type of power position kind of analogy. I think it's actually quite useful.
I do too. Yeah, I do too. Again, like we talked last time around, I think the biggest difference is that transactional awareness. How do I put this? If someone's going to take something that is as complex as the human mind and is as let's say, as difficult to contain as human behavior and present it as a model, they're going to have to they're going to have to leave out the vast majority of information. They're going to need to create a model that is simple enough, practical enough for people to understand, embrace, try to learn from, apply a little bit. If they want to have something that's in any way, I'm going to say, um, monetizable, that's not the right word, but they need to make some money off of it sooner or later. Not everyone can get paid to do pure research. And so people are trying to make it practical. So I think that what they did was they said, look, if we look at everything we've learned and everything we've looked at and on, it's just plain too much. And so we want to do something to be able to connect with people, get them interested in psychology, in themselves, etc. What can I give them as a simple, straightforward model that has some heuristic value to help them kind of look at a situation in a particular way, see things through light that they are already familiar with? I know I'm babbling a little bit, but hopefully you guys get the idea. We don't make money by making things more complex. We make money
Yeah,
by making things simpler for our
yeah,
students, for our clients, for our patients, for whatever. So our whole act of the whole act of a professional is always about abbreviating, simplifying, at least in how we present things. From
yeah.
yeah.
I think the problem I had with, or the challenge I had with transactional analysis as it was presented, was that it was limiting because they were talking to us about medical students and how it's
Mhm.
expected that we're going to enter this industry, this field from this child perspective. Now, I understand that from the hierarchical kind of
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
perspective, but it
Right.
seems like limited because for me, I'm like, okay, what if you're not? I never see things from that perspective, but that was
No,
like
that's
almost telling us we have to see things
Yeah,
or we're expected. I'm like, what?
that's your
that's
five talking.
Oh
Yeah,
gosh. Oh, that's
exactly.
anybody talking. I mean, that's outrageous
Yeah.
Yeah,
that it was
But you know
presented
what?
that way.
Here's the thing, Brian. I would have to go back to wondering about who taught you, because they brought this content to you through their own set of biases, beliefs, applicability,
right.
etc.
Eh,
If they were coming from a medical model, I promise you, the medical model overall is far more parental than it is childlike in the world of transactional analysis. So
Yeah,
and they're going to know if you ever want to be one of the parents, you got to know that you're going to go through a long period of time as a tightly controlled child, or you will never get invited to become a resident, a fellow, or whatever the case may be. I don't know of many other non-military situations where people are subordinated in the way they are in the way medicine is currently
you're
taught.
exactly right. That patriarchal perspective is
That's right.
exactly why there's
I'll
so
give
much
you, uh,
codependency.
yeah, I'll give you an example of this, just so you guys can have a little bit of fun with this. Many years ago, I became a paramedic. Long story about why, but I was working for the Poison Control Center, and I had this opportunity to go through this training program and blah blah blah. So I did. So went through the whole paramedic kind of thing, and graduated first in my class. I don't mind telling you, but it was something that was really really interesting. Except I failed the part of the practical exam, the final exam, because we had to look at an object attached to the wall by a patient bed and basically say, what is this? And there were two possibilities, a humidifier and a nebulizer. A humidifier adds moisture to the air that a patient is breathing. So if they're on oxygen or whatever, those are very drying sorts of things. So they want some humidity added to it. A nebulizer creates a cloud, a mist. So it gets more moisture in, it's more soothing, etc. So it's a definite thing. And so we walk up to this one, and printed on the side of this thing, etched in the rigid plastic it is made from, in embossed letters, it says nebulizer. And so I went, it's a nebulizer. And the doctors who are running this training program said I got it wrong because they say it's a humidifier. And it's kind of like, well, you can say it's humidifier all you want. The person who manufactured it is telling you it's a nebulizer. And
Wow,
they did not like having their authority questioned. And so
wow.
I had to go for a final exam makeup. And this final exam makeup started at about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And as everyone came in and corrected whatever they got wrong, they were allowed to do their thing, prove it, and leave. And there I am sitting and sitting and sitting until at the very, very last minute, we're talking about midnight now. The doctors who are running the program came out. I'm the only one left. And they said, and have you learned your lesson? And I said, and what is that? They said, you're being trained to be a paramedic. We're physicians.
Wow.
And I kind of went, then you should be able to read that it says nebulizer on the side of the thing. And I shouldn't have said that, but I did. So anyway,
Yeah.
but Katie, that's
Well,
my story.
there's a lot that can be said about that model, especially from a nursing standpoint. So
Yeah,
Hmm.
we
yeah.
could we could go on forever on
Well,
that
and I
one.
guess it's also present in higher education in the world of
Hmm.
academia and that.
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff where people are just, not feeling all that, powerful in and of themselves. And so they have to exercise whatever little authority they're given over somebody else just to make themselves feel better.
Mhm.
I can't vibe with it, but a lot of people go through the motions just because it's easier to go along with it than it is to challenge it. Nevertheless, we digress. So let me just read one more paragraph here, then let's get into the whole meat of it. So Odin says, I have chosen the term transactional awareness as an intentional alternative to transactional analysis in order to point toward this underdeveloped body of behaviorist literature and to distinguish it from the efforts, however useful, of Byrne and his followers. My purpose is not to discredit transactional analysis so much as to trim up some of its exaggerations and amplify the theoretical and research base out of which it operates. Admittedly, one significant audience to whom this discussion is addressed is the legion of persons whose lives have been significantly touched by transactional analysis. These readers bring valuable resources to the game, which may be easily correlated with the collusion spectrum. So can you feel that he was both annoyed and diplomatic at the same time? So
Hmm.
the man's quite a writer. If you read his stuff, it's all written like this. Um, So, but anyway, and he's done his own merging of brilliance. Further on in this, he cites lots of people he's integrated. Well, I just want to get into the basic models as he's laying it out. So again, what I want you to be doing here or appreciating here is that the merging of brilliance is something that many others have done their own versions of over the course of history, and allowing these models to come together and fit together ultimately needs to give rise to whatever we're believing. And so he said, and by the way, if you want to read the book, I'll give you all the details for it. But nevertheless, he says, basically, everything in a transaction involves two things: perceived level of power that someone has and the perceived level of emotion that they have, feelings, emotions, etc. And so they said basically power is at the high end here, that's a high status, and acquiescence is low status. So as you are presenting yourself in the transaction, are you presenting yourself as someone of high status, low status, or is the other person intentionally moving you to a certain place along this continuum? So that's the one. What is your level of power, status, etc.? And then the second dimension is about what's going on with you emotionally. And so resistance, negative feeling, and warmth, positive feeling. So where are you along this spectrum? Are you feeling resistant to it? Are you feeling warm about it? Positive, negative, neutral, etc. And right here you can see that they've kind of divided it up into quite the continuum. I've never even counted the points, but it's more than 10, and I I think it's even more than the change grid has. So I like that he's just kind of roughly saying, look, there's countless possibilities along these scales. And there you might be given a particular interaction. You may come into the interaction feeling like you have moderately, well, it's above, so moderately high status, certainly nowhere near as high as you could be, but you have some significant amount of resistance going on. That's where you are as you enter into whatever the discussion happens to be. If that is how you are viewing yourself, he's going to say, we can predict with great accuracy how you're going to present yourself and carry yourself.
Hey
Mm.
T,
Yep, David.
if you rotated that diagram 45 degrees to the right, would that fit the change grid?
And that is going to be the gifted student's question by the time we're done, because when you see it all, I am continue to be torn by how it needs to be rotated, but I don't think it is an easy rotation. I do think there's going to be some flipping involved. There's not going to be a perfect 90. I'll leave 45 as a possibility that's there. So we're going to see how it all comes together. Thank you for that. Thank you. Thank you. Now, he went on a little bit further and he said, so basically, you've got two positive poles on these axes and two negative poles. And in the middle, you got some neutral. So positive in this case does not mean morally good, nor does negative mean morally bad. It's just something is contributing and something might be detracting from it. And so if you have, pardon me, high status and high warmth, you're going to be in this protective wedge. If you've got low status, but a lot of warmth, you'll be dependent. If you have low status and you have some resistance, you'll be withholding. But if you have resistance and power, that's where competitive is going to live. Okay.
Interesting.
Now, to David's point, at this very moment, could I rotate this in such a way and say, well, of these four, can you say that one of them would be more likely to be outgrid? Your choices are competitive, protective, dependent, withholding. Which one do you think would be more outgrid?
Competitive.
I would say
Competitive.
Competitive. By default, that means dependent has to be in grid, and that resonates. That's fine. Is protective more likely to be upgrid or downgrid?
Downgrid.
Down.
I don't
Hmm.
know. I don't know. Withholding could be downgrid.
I'm saying protective is upgrid,
Yeah.
because think about
I'd buy that.
when does being protective come to have any value? You know,
when you're going through some
something's
situation.
got to be happening
Yeah,
so that
yeah.
the protector can rise to that occasion. So I think that's more of an upgrade situation. And withholding, you know, speaking as a downgrade person, I can tell you that as I get older, I'm becoming increasingly selective about what discussions I choose to involve myself in. So
Right.
I might have a lot to say and a lot to contribute and, you know, a lot of thoughts and feelings, but
Yeah.
it's going to go
Initially, I
across
was
the
thinking
different
just the
energy.
opposite. I was thinking initially downgrade. You're protective of, all this knowledge, skills, experience you have, and so you're not letting anything in. So I was
Yeah,
thinking the
but
opposite.
protective
Yeah.
as a defense or protective as a, ugh, I'm already bored. Don't give me work to do with it. You know? So I think we're gonna have fun with it. But David, right there, based on what you said, we want to go, well, if we're just right in the heart of competitive, I can't just do a regular 90-degree rotation. I'm going to
No.
be along the 45.
Yeah, and I think it's a 45 flip.
I think it's a 45 flip. Yeah. It'll be interesting, but obviously it has to be flipped. It has to be flipped. All right, so they went a little bit further and they said, all right, well, we can use some other words. And he says, well, like, we can designate the four poles as friendly, hostile, dominant, and submissive. And I've seen that before in other models. Have you guys also seen that? Dominant versus submissive, friendly versus hostile? Yeah, well, yeah.
No.
I personally take issue with the fact that just because I'm downgraded, they're going to believe I'm going to be hostile. Um, I'm not going to act out on my hostility, but yes, I'm annoyed. And so, you know, or yes, I'm bored, or yes, I'm whatever. But that word kind of, I don't know, rubs me. It just feels like the extreme. It's not kind of recognizing that friendly isn't an extreme word. Friendly is along a healthy continuum. Hostile doesn't really sound like it's along a healthy continuum. It sounds like it's much to the more to the extreme,
Hmm.
you know. So how about couldn't hostile be guarded? You know, I mean, so I just take issue with that one word, but you know, this was done back in the day, so I don't really know. Put them all together: friendly submissive, hostile dominant, friendly dominant. That, by the way, would say that a truly outgrade person is hostile dominant. But that's where I've had issue with that. We go like, no, they're a competitor. Is hostility a given element of competition? I mean, hostility? Doesn't that feel a little bit extreme?
Yeah, I think that's extreme.
Yeah, I mean, there's got to be other words. Come on, we have an adjective rich language. We should be able to find a better word. Nevertheless, it's the word he used. He's passed away. My time to bring this up is now gone. So now he said, well, you know what? We showed that scale. We got these two little things here. So we could really look at it along two axes. Sorry, I'm dragging things around, but nevertheless. So on the vertical axis, let's just call them number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And on the horizontal, we'll go A, B, C, D, and E. And I thought, all right, if that brings you some joy, you go right ahead. So what did he decide to do? I'm going to turn it into a plus sign. Let's see if I can say what a 1 is upgrade. I experience myself as exceptionally influential in the presence of this person. And again, it's always going to be a transaction. And then a little bit more chill, I experience myself as more influential than this person most of the time. And then there's could be a you know, a split. I feel I experience this person and myself as equally influential. I experienced myself as less influential. I felt powerless in the presence of this person. So you get the idea, you're feeling what's going on along that continuum of power. Now, this one
Mhm.
on the outside is about more being influenced, or whether you feel positive or negative about the person, warm or hostile, as the case may be. If you are very far to the right here, I had an intimate, affectionate relationship with this person coming more in grid, if you will. I had a mutually beneficial, friendly relationship. I feel no strong emotions. I had a relatively conflicted relationship. I had a highly conflicted relationship. All right. So you want like, let's do it as a plus. And there might be something there that's worth looking at. Do you think he left it there? No. He turns it into 25 squares. So he says that while he's talked to you right now about the ones that form the plus in the middle, there's also going to be different combinations. So what if instead of being a 2C, call these were C, 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 and all these were 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. Well, what if I'm a 2D? What if I'm a 1A? What if I'm a whatever? And so he basically created 25 stopping points, 25 squares around which you could look at what might be going on. Is anyone curious to know if those 25 squares resonate with the 25 we were looking at several subjects ago for the circle? Yeah,
Interesting.
it
You
is.
mean for the Likert?
We were doing the Likert scale, saying, well, let's just do
Ah.
ability 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's do challenge 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What happens in each of those 25 different possible combinations? And we again found that that was easy to overlay. Depending on what we were looking at, it could go edge to edge. Maybe it stayed in a healthier kind of scope. But nevertheless, we said, no, this actually shapes. Again, we'd have to flip it or rotate it. So just, no, this is his diagram. We have to do things sometimes to make things fit on our diagram. But the relative positions of all of them would stay the same. We would just be looking at the mirror image or an invert or whatever. Nevertheless, now here's something I thought was very interesting. And until I was first exposed to this model, I had never really thought about it this way. But 25 squares gives rise to 16 slices. So I'll go back there. If I count across the top here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. There's my 16 different possibilities out on the edge. Put a dot in the middle, start drawing diagonal lines to get to those. And there you're going to have, these are going to be the 16 archetypes, the 16 main, again, in his lingo, you're going to learn them as ploys that someone might be taking on, from executive director to a trustworthy guide. And around and around and around they go. Do you guys find that interesting, or is that something you'd already thought about in grand detail long
No,
ago?
I definitely
Yeah.
haven't thought about that.
No. Isn't
No.
that interesting? But that also means that his whole grid diagram here, the 5x5 array, tells me that he appreciates the fact that between the description of the executive director and the accommodative obeyer, there are going to be 3 other stopping points, one of which is going to be in the middle of a balance. So then we're going to shift slightly into higher power, shift slightly further down. So he's saying at many places along this, there are going to be some intermediate ploys or variations on the 16 ploys that are worth taking a look at.
Interesting.
Hey,
You said
T,
he was a theologian?
He was a theologian and wrote extensively. Yes, go ahead,
Uh,
Chris.
hey, what year was this created? I may have missed the beginning portion.
76 is when this game was created. And from what I understand, a lot of transactional analysis would have been in the decade prior to that. So it was experiencing a heyday. In fact, as he already admitted, it greatly outperformed whatever this model was. But if you read his work, you'll know this. The man never really had any interest in turning this into something big and standalone and whatever. He just wanted to create an exercise. He's a theologian. And as he gets into doing more counseling kind of work with parishioners and things like that, that's his whole thing. He was trying to create a tool that could be used to help facilitate people's awareness and understanding about how they were coming to, presenting at, functioning in any kind of a transaction, any kind of a.
but that's why I like this stuff here, because what it seems like it's doing is it's helping people to reconcile those extremes. I'm thinking a theologian, if their religion is all about these extremes between good and evil, there has to be something that, in the middle. You're just not, the extreme of those, but you don't start there. Rather, you can
That is correct.
balance. So I think that's what this gets to. At least
It ultimately does, and there are several chapters inside of this particular book that speak specifically about the religious side of things.
Now, T, if you rotate this 45 degrees to the right, I think you fit the change grid.
Well, I think you are right, but think about what it means is that, are we saying an executive director is more likely to be the most outgrid, or is a resourceful competitor the most likely to be outgrid? So again, just let this kind of stew for a while, because there's going to be several other little glimpses we're going to have that are going to go like, we're going to touch our foreheads and go, now how does that fit in? So it's going to be a real challenge. Now, as I said last time around, of all of the models I've ever stumbled across, and honestly, it's in the hundreds of models that we've actually looked at and seen how they might overlay, this is the one. This is the one that, as I stumbled across it, I said, never have I seen a model that has provided so much information from so many different angles in such a clever kind of way, and given it purpose, given it, structure, put it into something that's actually actionable. And so I thought, wow, if I could someday really integrate this, if we could actually merge this, I think we'd be doing something really good for not only this model, but for our own model, both of which, as I said at the beginning, could easily disappear into obscurity only because the people that put them together had no desire for, fame and fortune. So there you go. That's why you need an 8, getting back to Enneagrams. It's great to be a 5. We could give you all the great ideas and tools and data and everything. We got it for you. But that's the end of our interest in it. So
Interesting.
yeah. Okay. 2 more little diagrams I just want to show you and by the way, these are just quick snapshots I took out of the book. If anyone who's ever affiliated or owns the copyright to this material discovers this recording, we mean no disrespect. We couldn't find it in any other source. And so we've done this purely for research and discussion among professionals. So, all right. One interesting thing that he does put in here is that every language has simple phrases to express these basic positions. That's what he's saying. The collusion spectrum has 16 slices, the basic ploys of the spectrum to which we will so frequently refer are, and then I don't know what the rest says, but every language has simple phrases. And so that's what he's going to tell you here. These are the director, get with it, move it. The guide, here's how, this way, protector, how you do it, here's a boost. And so we could go through all of them, but I thought these are really interesting because I love that he appreciates the fact that he thinks and writes at a level that is far grander, not necessarily higher, but grander than most people care to sit down and read and understand. You can tell the level of students he's targeting. So when I see that he actually has the ability to simplify things to the point that it becomes approachable, my belief is that he is going to take a similar position throughout the work that he's presenting. And that makes it something that, to me, means I don't have to devote years of my life to understanding everything to the degree he understood it. I'm just trying to get a feeling for how this resonates, how this, might enhance what we're doing, or we might be able to enhance it. Okay, questions, comments about that? All righty, then the last one I'm going to show you, and then we're going to take a look at the diagram, is he's going to say to you that ultimately, for you to have the healthiest transactions, you need to be able to determine where you are and where your other players are in this transaction. Where are you and which ploy are you employing? And get the two of you into the same channel and ultimately decide where you're trying to go together. But this is ultimately all about influencing. And so he said that these are the channels through which, in fact, right on the diagram, I'll show what he calls them. These are the 9 channels of human interaction. So if you guys can see this, the lower left corner, these are what each of the concentric circles mean from the center out, the 9 channels of human reaction. Our human interaction. So we'll see that. So from on the far right side, the demand, all right, the fight channel. Then number 2, the demand channel, the win-lose channel, the assertion channel, the influence channel, guidance, mutuality, sympathy, and intimacy. Now, going back to David's observation, David, when I just saw the names of the channels, I thought, are these just stopping points along the drive a resultant that you get when you look at the change grid. You know, we're asking people about ability and challenge, but it's telling us about tension and drive. So is this really about drive? And at one extreme, people fight. That would be out grid. But on the other extreme, no, they want to love, which is more in grid. If I go from in grid to out grid, do I go from intimacy to sympathy, mutuality, guidance, influence, assertion, win, lose, demand, and fight? Can you guys feel what is changing as we look at the
Going out grid.
it's moving out grid or in grid, depending on where I started. Yeah. But I feel that there's a progression there that's occurring. And my first reaction wants to be that that progression exists on top of the heart line of power and is simply a way of expressing the intensity of the drive that the person is experiencing based on their perceptions. That is my initial immediate sort of response. I can tell you that I'm not convinced that that's true at all, but that feels like there should be some merit to discussing that more deeply. Okay, now you guys you're all okay so far?
Yes.
All right. So, and by the way, you can see up here, there are numbers. These numbers correspond to those different ploys that you saw named up there and down here. Instead of 2, you got 2A, 3 has 3A, 4 has 4A. These are the counterbalances. Well, inside of the game, there are these 8.5 by 11 cards that go into each one of these 16 in vivid detail based on the level of intensity they happen to be feeling. All in and of themselves, they are an amazing resource. And so I thought I would see if I could actually dust off our old scanner and scan them so that you guys can see them a little bit more clearly than taking photographs allows me to do.
Have you actually played this game
Oh, many, many times.
with a group?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we did it with a set of executives that were in terrible conflict with one another. These people never could get around to talking to business issues when you sat them around the table. We're talking the C-suite and a little bit beyond. So, it filled a conference table, but yeah, they had to really work their way through this, and they found out a great deal about themselves. And again, I was always saying, this is how we're going to become aware of what's going on. Keep in mind that transactional awareness does not have a lot of advice that it gives. It doesn't talk a lot about strategies on moving around. And so I thought, well, if nothing else, we can add that change element to whatever awarenesses arise out of this experience. So there is no way to figure out, well, based on transactional awareness, there is no way to figure out where you are on this thing without just reading it over and guessing. It's not like there is a test you take to say this is where you are on that. That's not what it's all about. You learned by playing a game. And I'll be introducing the game to you guys. And in fact, we can actually play it online. And
Really?
so, yeah, I'll have to put up the sort of thing, and we'll have to play around with it. But yeah, we can actually all play the game at the same time. So very interesting. All right, so these are the little things I wanted to show you for today's call. But I want to now show you what I chatted over. Oh, by the way, the blue things are the individual photographs. And I don't know how to make it. Oh, there you go. I just learned something. All right. I believe I've already chatted it over to everyone, but I'm going to slide it in again. And again, I'll tell you that years ago, 11 years ago now, Stephen and I took detailed photographs of that diagram, and we were able to seam them together as best as we could based on the technology we had available to us at the time to create this. If you open it up, it probably is going to open up at about 50% of its size. If you take it up to 100% of the size, you should have no difficulty being able to read whatever it happens to say. And I think we actually designed it so we could go up to 150% without too much distortion.
T, I
What
think I
is the
already have
free
this, don't
retreat?
I?
I'm sorry, wait just one second, Kathy. Yeah.
I think I already have this, don't I?
Yeah.
Well, we sent it out in 2011.
Yes.
And so it's about a 6 megabyte file. So check to see if you have it, but I did distribute it to everybody at the time.
Yes.
we stumbled across, and it's amazing what you find in your archives while you go looking for something else. So that was my
Yeah.
my current situation. All right, so one moment, I'm going to zoom it down to size I can actually.
What is the free retreat safety zone?
Sometimes the game gets to be very, what do I want to say? I want to say
Intense.
intimate. Well, it becomes very intimate as far as the expectation to share secrets,
Oh,
to speak your personal truth. And if at any time you feel as though you are not safe to do that, or somehow or another resistant to doing it, you can move your playing piece to the retreat zone, and you can stay there as long as you want, and nobody can ask you any questions about it. You just get to sit there until you're ready to come back into the game. And when you come back into the game, you have the choice of just coming back in or explaining to everyone why you stepped out and how you became comfortable stepping back in. And the reason for
interesting.
that, and he doesn't, I think, talk about this in the book, but we talked about it with the group we did. I said, it's because when you have to understand that this game is not something that exists inside of a box. This game is playing out at all times, all day, every day, in all interactions. So it is the game of life, if life is about interaction. So it's not a game like we're playing this. We're just trying to say, let's stop for a moment and let's turn this natural, automatic kind of game we're playing into something a bit more deliberate, little bit more conscientious, so we can learn how the game actually operates and how effective we are at playing it before we step back into it. So no judgments are being made about any of these different ploys. You need to be good at all of them. So, but anytime you're feeling as though you can do that. So we believe there was as much, if not more, to learn about people seeking safety. See, when you're playing the game and you want to be safe, you have to move your token there. Well, in the game of life, the real game, how do you know when people in a transaction, in a relationship, have moved into their retreat zone? How do you know? You know, the answer is you've got to guess. You're doing it because you're observing their behavior. They've become more withdrawn, less participative. Maybe you're picking up on some of their physical cues, facial cues, things like that are letting you know that they are physically withdrawing from whatever's going on. But unless we are aware of the fact that people are retreating into a safety zone, it is very possible inside of an organization that a great many people can be in retreat and not bring any attention to that fact. And so you're not aware of it. And so how does that affect then the transaction going forward if people have retreated? Yep.
Would this be a little bit like quiet quitting?
I was just getting ready to say that.
There you go. Quiet quitting. Because you know what? It takes less energy to just go to the safety zone, deal with whatever, nonsense is heading my way, and I'm just going to do my work and collect my check. And, it's quiet quitting. But what they're quitting isn't the work. They're
Hmm.
quitting the stuff that is unnecessary or viewed as unnecessary to the
Hmm.
work.
Exactly.
And maybe they're right to a certain degree, you know. So, if the truth is that companies can function quite well by not physically getting together, then what does getting together cost us?
Mm.
Is its benefit great enough? Whatever. So point is, that's what the retreat is really, the safety zone is really all about. Since we've been talking about the corners, we might as well go up here. And I just want to remind you that he frames this as a learning exercise for intimates and associates based on the collusion spectrum. The collusion spectrum is his, but you're not going to find much around it. Yep. All right. So are you guys finding this all interesting? If you are, I'm going to do the next
This is
level.
fascinating.
Okay, we
Yes,
have a
it's
little,
very
good. We have a little bit of time remaining. And again, while I'm picking up hints to how this overlays, I'm just going to say I'm not convinced yet. And so I want all you guys to kind of feel the same thing. Are you feeling a little bit, picking up on some hints about how this might overlay? Just be careful that you allow this whole merging experience to to take its time. Okay. All right. So let's start with the 4 words outermost: power, warmth, acquiescence, and resistance. Interesting. So we had already said that we believe that power could live where on the change grid? You look
Out
at
grid.
Out.
out grid. Where else do people perceive themselves as being powerful?
Down grid.
Could be down grid, because we've heard before what information is
Power.
power. And people who believe that they have unique information, unique skills, unique whatever, believe that they have done something very smart to protect themselves, insulate themselves from whatever might be going on. So power seems to be in the realm of being down grid and being out grid. Now you can build the other case. Well, what about upgrid people? Don't upgrid people consider themselves to be powerful?
No.
No,
powerless.
Powerless, because what do we know about their perceived, what their perceptions are?
Out of control.
Out of
They're
control.
up out of control, low perceived ability, high perceived challenge, they're up there. So no, where I think about how powerful does someone down in apathy feel like they are?
Not really.
Not really, or they feel powerful enough, but don't feel like participating.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I think there's one thing, a difference between power that is felt and power that is acted upon.
Mhm.
So who's got some thoughts around that? Kathy, anybody got some thoughts around power that is felt versus power that's acted upon? Yeah. The reason why I bring this up is because it could certainly be possible that power does not sit at the corner of the change grid. Maybe it fits alongside of the change grid. So if you go right ahead. So if you perceive yourself as having a very high level of ability, regardless of the level of challenge you are presented with, you could still feel empowered or feel powerful enough, like you've got what it takes to handle that.
Mm-hmm.
You guys, does that feel like that could be possible?
Yeah.
I'm not saying
Yeah,
it
because
is.
you can deal with it in your own time. Whereas if you did not feel like you had high skill, knowledge, and experience, that out of controlness in part is like you're just overwhelmed.
Yep. And that's what we're going to have to look at, because if we are believing what we've just said to be true, then where does resistance go? So if power is there, I'm kind of stupefying you guys a little bit. Where does resistance live on the change grid? Your choices now are, well, you got to give me 2 different quadrants.
Down grid and in grid.
Down grid and in grid, we're likely to be resistant. Why would we be likely to be resistant if we're down grid and in grid?
Well, down grid doesn't want to play and in grid is hiding.
Okay, in grid is hiding. In grid is hiding. What are they hiding from?
They're hiding from participation.
Because what do they feel about the
They're
participation?
threatened. They're threatened by it.
Yeah, see, that's where we have to think about this, because what that whole side of the change grid has is they perceive the situation as having minimal challenge, even though their ability can range from perception 0 all the way up to 12. To be that along that side, you'd have to view your challenge as being very, very low. In which case I would be resisting it because I don't think it really matters. Now, that may hold true, because I do see that right on this resistance side of things, I do have apathy. I do have bitterness. I do have some things here that could actually come out in a downgrid person's behavior. So we're gonna have to play with that a little bit. All right.
Interesting.
Yeah. Which 2 types share warmth? Who are the warm people?
In grid.
In-grid.
And upgrid.
In-grid and upgrid. In-grid and
I'd say in grid and down grid.
Yeah.
in-grid and
What-
downgrid. In which case, see, this is where you have to kind of play with this. How does this rotate? Because who acquiesces?
See, I was thinking acquiescence is in-grid.
I think acquiescence is in grid. Who else acquiesces?
Downgrid?
In grid and down grid. So I'm going like, well, wait, what just happened there? You guys with me on this now? Did you just kind of go like,
Mhm.
oh, now wait a minute, that doesn't feel right?
But
Yeah,
upgrade would
because
acquiesce as well, right? Because because they're out of control and would do anything to get in control. So they would acquiesce, I think.
Yeah, right. Are they more resistant or are they more warm?
I think more warm. They're willing to do anything. Just the basis of change works. Just tell me what to do and I'll do it. Right. So they're not
Right.
low resistance to that in my thought process.
Yep. See, this is what we have to play with. This is kind of like,
Interesting.
yeah. All right. So let's kind of throw this out. Let me, in fact, let me slide in a diagram for just a second. If I can scroll up here a little bit, I can at least give you guys a plain old everyday change grid to look at. All right. So fine. We got up grid, down grid. I'll see if I can type a little bit on top of this. So let's start by what we feel very strongly about. Two of these people are all about power. They are saying that the essential example of power is this director executive type. So let's read a little bit more about what they're saying about this executive director type. This is executives, foremen, buyers, managers. I love you can date something just by some of the labels they've used. They avoid the loss of power or influence. Their dark side, I could look up and tell you what they call this circle, but bossiness, absolutism, pride, false superiority, impatience, illusions of omnipotence. Their good adjectives are things like majestic, imperious, dictatorial, mighty, domineering, overruling, controlling, imposing. Are you guys feeling a danger zone being described?
Yeah,
Yep.
that sounds like a outgrid kind of big time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yep, yep.
Outgrid danger zone, yeah.
Yeah. Now, what they feel they bring to the table is magnificence, efficiency, determination, order, versatility, decisiveness, initiative. That's what they're all about. Lead when appropriate. I'm decisive and influential, and all I really want is for people to comply.
Mm.
Yeah. So it's interesting that for that to be as far outgrid as you could go, that dictates the rotation to 90 degrees. And I'm not convinced there. Now, if we go back to our thing and say, yeah, but you know what? It's also those people that are a bit upgrid. Is a competitor further outgrid? Let's look at this one. A competitor, salespeople, athletes, hunters,
Hmm.
avoid gestures of dependency.
Yeah.
Mhm.
They're opportunists, acquisitive, avarice, imperialism, recklessness, fraud, indifference, envy. They're unscrupulous, ripping off, cannibalistic, exploitative. I mean, how does this feel any better than this one over here? These are all really, really bad. So, and by
Maybe
the way,
these are just
those
danger zone discussions.
exactly. But what they feel like they bring to you is courage, self-fulfillment, enterprise, resourcefulness, heroism, determination, fortitude. They want to win. They're scrappy and achieving. What runs their life is expand your legitimate interests.
yeah.
You know,
Doesn't that feel?
Well, it looks like what's interesting is it looks like all these sort of outer ring is all about whatever outgrid, danger zone type characteristics, wherever it may lie, and
Mhm.
then you're going toward the inner circle where it's healthier, where there's a healthier description, more of what we would like to describe as being in power or being in whatever that describes. So that's another perspective on this.
Yeah.
This
Hmm.
these are all kind of danger zone level descriptors on the outer circle. So he's
Right.
doing something similar to what the change grid does, which is has, the danger zone stuff on the far outside, and
Yeah,
as you move inward, it's more toward balance in the
that's right.
center.
That's right. And to Kathy's point, keep in mind that the individualist, the director, the guide. Is that right? Yes. And half of the protector, half of the competitor are those all fall into that one outgrid quadrant. So all of
Mm,
their negative descriptions, we would just shove into the outgrid danger zone. But you know how we have that red circle?
mhm.
Anything outside of the red circle is a dangerous place. And so it may be that some of these are more confined to certain areas, but
So, see, what about like even just them having the dark side, right? Not
yeah,
necessarily all have to be extreme outgrid, but it's just
that's right.
certain degrees of the dark side, and they
That's
can
right.
live in the same place as where some of the inner ring is. It's just that it's the darker side of it, the more extreme of the things that exist
Exactly. And
closer to
so
the
what I
middle.
like about what you're saying and what Odin has done here is that he says this is transactional. We say everything is activity specific. It's situational. Well, it may very well be that this doesn't map to the change grid coast to coast, top to bottom, right to left. It may very well be that its intended purpose is going to confine it to a certain region of the change grid. He's saying this is transactions. This is about people interacting with other people. So does that happen coast to coast, top to bottom on the change grid, or are there certain areas of the change grid where people are more isolated and therefore not involved in transactions?
Mhm.
In
Yeah, I
which,
agree.
Yeah.
I mean, it feels to me like this is, if you put it on top of the chain grid, it's sort of over to the right, but not fully
yeah,
in the right-hand quadrant. It's
I
not
would agree.
fully out grid, but it's over to the right somewhere.
Yeah, and I might suggest that, let's see what layer would show this most effectively. I might say to you that this whole idea about
Mm.
ploys you have to have a certain level of awareness.
Awareness. Yeah.
You can do that. So it may very well be that this circle has to overlay somewhere. I know I'm scooting everything around, doesn't matter. Somewhere along here, we'd have to figure out what's the limit. And maybe one type has a little bit of pre-awareness going on. So we could spread it out to the borders are 2. So it's got to be ability above a 2, challenge above a 2, or what's this transaction really all about? Or is it 3 and 3? Where does the scope where this could actually overlay? So we'll have to look at that. That being said, we're going to have to look at the cases that can be made for director being outgrid versus competitor being as far outgrid as you can get. I'm talking about this is as far outgrid as you can get.
Mm.
All right.
This
So
is good.
yeah, I mean, I find it fascinating, but I'm strange. So if you guys are finding it fascinating, then welcome to the world of being somewhat strange.
Plus, too, I think what Chris was describing for me, this gets to the point. A lot of times when people say things like "I'm triggered" or "I am angry," they're disconnected from what's underneath that. Like the awareness just isn't there. You have to actually walk them through that, right?
Yeah, because
So with
they
this kind
know
of game,
they're
right, they're
recognizing a
experiencing it,
sensation. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah. They're
And
experiencing it.
but this I think helped to uncover. It's like, okay, well, let's get underneath that. Like what you came to the situation with this attitudinal perception. Now, what's underneath that?
Yep. And so I think that this is a fun thing to kind of look at and go, well, to Brian's point, how do people look at this? Well, if you're doing this as the game, can you imagine if they say, and where do you place this other individual on this? And you go, oh, I place them right here with arrogance. This is where they are. They're kind of going like, you think I'm a braggart, insolent? Yeah, it's like, could you see how someone might want to retreat to the safety zone if you're confronted with this sort of stuff
Hmm.
about yourself? And that being said, the thing that I appreciate about his list of adjectives is that it includes both relatively positive and relatively negative ones. No one until we did this merging said the negative ones all need to shift together. They travel as a set. So we don't have some weird negative one sprinkled in the middle of a whole lot of great ones, because there's area in the change grid, good things are happening. It's not some, miracle. Good things happen when you're in certain places in your mind. And so that's it. So I like here if we read these, disparaging, braggart, I think I just went a little bit further out grid. Insolent, snobbish, smug, exhibitionist, ostentatious, asinine. There's something you want to call your boss. Inflated, haughty. But if I get down here, the words are going to become less and less, what do I say, confrontational. Because you're pithy and you're self-assured and you're creative. You're forward, strong-willed, insistent, original, unflappable, assertive, unique. I mean, I could position these as being the wildest praise you've ever received. So I like the idea that they're saying like these are adjectives, but they travel. And he's saying, hopefully, that there's a certain order in which he has listed these.
Could we say that tension reduces as you go closer to the center?
It is my belief that if we get to the exact center of the change grid, we are going to find that while humans need to interact on 9 channels, it's because we want to achieve a single channel. So, and not one of these, but a channel that encompasses and goes beyond what these channels are saying. These are the channels of human existence.
Right.
What are the channels of human being? What is,
Right.
whatever word you want to say it. When we dissociate ourselves, when we float above the change grid, well, then what is the channel all about? Is that channel about humanity? Is that channel about what? But I think that this is a direction, appreciating what channel we're stuck in right now. Like if I'm stuck in let's say I'm working with someone and there's a problem with a sympathy challenge. I want someone to be kind. These people want someone to be cheerful. What's really going on here? What's really going on here? I can see that there is value in focusing on the sympathy channel. But if you can develop a certain fluency in all 9 of these channels, then do you earn yourself a place in a channel above? And I don't know what that would be, but I'm sure we could find plenty of philosophers who have given a name to whatever that state happens to be. Yeah.
The guide.
Yeah, well, I like to see, I was thinking that, but here we have guidance as a channel. So we have to come up with something that's kind of like inclusive of guiding. Yeah, appreciating all of these. So it's there. We'll find it. We'll find it. All right, that's our time for today. So I'm glad you guys are finding this interesting. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to reach out to me. If you had trouble downloading the PDF file, I can email it to you. I think it's small enough that it would be accommodated by anyone's email limits.
Hey T, how large did you say this would be if you wanted it printed out?
It's about 2 feet by 3 feet.
2 feet by 3 feet. Okay.
Yeah, something like that. You can scale it, obviously. It's a PDF file, but yeah, it's poster size. I think it was 12. We had to seam together 12 photographs to get it to come together.
See, if you could email that, that would be great.
Sure.
I appreciate it.
I shall do that. Anybody else need it emailed?
I'll take your email.
I'll take one too, just in case.
All right, fine. Then what I'll do is I'll just broadcast it to the list.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank
All right.
you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Bye for now.
Have a
Thank
great day,
you.
everybody.
Bye.
Thank you. All right.